My husband chose his insane mother over me. What I did next made them both regret it. It started small. His mother would call during dinner, and he'd answer. Every single time. She'd show up unannounced on weekends, rearranging my kitchen cabinets because that's not how a proper wife organizes things. When I got pregnant, she insisted on being in the delivery room. My husband didn't see the problem. She's just trying to help, he'd say, scrolling through his phone while his mother criticized everything from my housekeeping to my job to the way I folded his shirts. The breaking point came when our daughter was born. I named her after my grandmother who'd raised me. We'd discussed it for months. My husband had agreed. But when his mother arrived at the hospital, she took one look at the birth certificate and her face went purple. "You named my granddaughter after your family?" she shrieked. Change it. Change it right now." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. For the next 2 weeks, she refused to use our daughter's name. She'd call her the baby, or make up her own nickname. During visits, she'd correct me constantly. "You're holding her wrong. That's not how you burp a baby. Why isn't she on a schedule yet?" My husband would just shrug. "Mom knows what she's doing. She raised 4 kids. When our daughter was 6 weeks old, I came home from a doctor's appointment to find my mother-in-law sitting in our nursery, feeding her a bottle. She was crying," she explained. "You clearly weren't meeting her needs." She had let herself in with the spare key my husband had given her, without asking me. That night, I told my husband this had to stop. His mother needed boundaries. He got defensive, saying I was being dramatic, that his mother was only trying to bond with her grandchild. "She broke into our house," I said. "She has a key. That's not breaking in." The next morning, I changed all the locks. When his mother showed up that afternoon and her key didn't work, she called my husband screaming. He came home early from work, furious. "How dare you lock my mother out of our house?" "It's our house," I said, "not hers." He grabbed his keys and stormed out. 2 hours later, he texted that he was staying at his mother's house until I apologized and gave her a new key. That was 4 days ago. This morning, I received an email from his mother's lawyer. She's filing for grandparents' rights, claiming I'm an unfit mother who's keeping her from her grandchild. My husband signed a statement supporting her petition. He actually chose his mother over his own wife and daughter. I sat there staring at the legal documents, my hands shaking. Then I opened my laptop and started making calls, first to my lawyer, then to my parents. Then to the private investigator I'd hired 2 weeks ago, when my gut told me something was deeply wrong. The investigator's report arrived this afternoon. Turns out my mother-in-law has been documenting everything, taking photos through our windows, saving screenshots of my social media posts, building a case against me for months. She wants custody, not visitation, custody. And my husband has been helping her the entire time. I'm sitting in my lawyer's office right now, holding our daughter. The paperwork in front of me isn't about grandparents' rights. It's about something else entirely. Something my husband doesn't know about yet. Something his mother definitely didn't see coming. The house is in my name. Only my name. We bought it 2 years before we got married using money my grandmother left me. My husband never contributed a single dollar to the down payment or the mortgage. I'd been paying everything from my salary while he spent his money on whatever he wanted. His mother didn't know that detail when she started plotting. My lawyer, Patricia, slid another folder across her desk. "The financial records you requested." I opened it. Bank statements going back 18 months. My husband's accounts showed regular transfers, large ones, all going to his mother, $500 here, $200 there, sometimes $2,000 at a time. I did the math. He'd given her over $34,000 of his salary while I paid our mortgage, our utilities, our groceries. "There's more," Patricia said quietly. She showed me the property records. My mother-in-law had put a down payment on a house 2 streets away from ours, 4 bedrooms, a nursery already painted pink. She'd been planning this for months, planning to take my daughter and raise her close enough that I'd have to see them every day. "Can she actually win?" I asked. Patricia shook her head. "Grandparents' rights cases rarely succeed when both parents are fit and present. But that's not what concerns me. Look at this." She pulled out another document, a petition for emergency custody. My mother-in-law was claiming I was mentally unstable, that I'd had postpartum depression, that I was a danger to my own child. She had statements from neighbors I'd never met, claiming they'd heard me screaming at the baby, photos of our house taken through windows showing dirty dishes in the sink, laundry on the couch, normal life with a newborn labeled as neglect. My husband had signed every page. "They're going to try to remove your daughter from your care as early as next week," Patricia said. "We need to move fast." I looked down at my sleeping daughter. She was 10 weeks old, perfect and tiny and innocent. And these people wanted to rip her away from me. "What are my options?" Patricia smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Well, let's start with the fact that your husband committed fraud." She explained it carefully. "When we'd refinanced the mortgage last year to get a better rate, my husband had signed documents stating he contributed equally to the household. He'd claimed the house as marital property, but he'd never paid a single mortgage payment, never contributed to property taxes. That was fraud, and it was documented. Then there's the financial abuse," she continued. "He's been systematically depleting marital funds to give to his mother while you've been supporting the household alone. We can prove financial exploitation. But the best part? The thing that made me start smiling despite everything? Your mother-in-law has been stalking you," Patricia said. "Taking photos through your windows without permission, entering your property without consent even before your husband gave her a key, harassing you. We have documentation of dozens of unwanted visits in the past 2 months alone. I'd kept a journal. Every time she showed up uninvited, every critical comment, every boundary she'd crossed. I documented it all, thinking I was crazy for being bothered by it. Turns out I was building evidence. I pulled out my phone and showed Patricia the Notes app, pages and pages of entries. October 12th. She arrived at 7 a.m. without calling, let herself in while I was in the shower. I I came downstairs in my bathrobe to find her reorganizing the nursery. She said the crib was facing the wrong direction according to feng shui. October 18th, she criticized my body at my postpartum checkup, said I should be losing weight faster, told the doctor I seemed depressed because I wasn't wearing makeup. October 24th, she threw away the organic formula I bought and replaced it with the brand she used, said I was wasting money trying to be better than her. November 2nd, she posted photos of the baby on Facebook against my wishes. When I asked her to take them down, she said I was being paranoid and selfish for not sharing my daughter with the family. Patricia read through them all, taking notes. "This is gold," she said. "This shows a clear pattern of harassment and boundary violations. Here's what I recommend," Patricia said. "We file for divorce immediately. We include a restraining order against your mother-in-law. We submit all this evidence showing the fraud, the financial abuse, and the stalking, and we let them know that if they proceed with this custody case, we're filing criminal charges. Will that work? The restraining order will be granted within days based on this evidence. Your husband will have to explain to a judge why he's been committing fraud and helping his mother stalk his wife, and your mother-in-law will have to explain why she thinks she deserves custody when she's actively being charged with harassment." I signed the papers that afternoon. The divorce petition was filed at 4:00 p.m. The restraining order application went in at 4:15 p.m. By 5:00 p.m., my husband was served at his mother's house. He called me 11 times in 10 minutes. I didn't answer. Then his mother called. Then his mother's lawyer. I blocked all of them and went home. That night, I fed my daughter, gave her a bath, and rocked her to sleep in the nursery his mother would never control. I'd installed a security system that afternoon. Cameras on every door, every window. Nobody was getting in uninvited ever again. The next morning, my phone was full of messages from numbers I didn't recognize. His mother's friends, his family members, all telling me I was tearing the family apart, that I was being selfish, that grandmothers have rights too. One message stood out, from my husband's sister. "You know Mom can be intense, but she means well. Can't you just let her see the baby? Is your pride really worth destroying everyone's lives?" I screenshot it and sent it to Patricia. "Add it to the harassment file," she said. My husband's aunt tried next, showing up at my door at 8 in the morning. I watched her through my new camera system, pacing on my porch, ringing the bell over and over. I called the police and reported someone trespassing. She left before they arrived, but it was documented. Then came the Facebook posts. My mother-in-law's friends started a whisper campaign. Vague posts about heartless mothers and keeping children from loving grandparents. Posts about grandparents' rights and family values. They tagged me in some of them until I blocked them all. My husband tried a different approach. He sent an email, long and rambling, about how I'd changed, how motherhood had made me cruel, how his mother was just trying to help, and I was being unreasonable. He said we could fix this if I'd just apologize and let things go back to normal. Normal. Like it was normal for his mother to have keys to my house. Normal for her to show up whenever she wanted. Normal for her to plan to take my child. I forwarded the email to Patricia without responding. The emergency hearing for the restraining order was scheduled for Monday morning. I showed up with Patricia, my evidence binders, and my mother who'd flown in to support me. My husband looked terrible. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. His mother sat beside him in a designer suit, her face tight with rage. Their lawyer looked uncomfortable, shuffling papers and avoiding eye contact. The judge reviewed my evidence. Photos of my mother-in-law peering through my windows, taken by my home security cameras. Timestamps of her visits, showing she'd come to my house 31 times in 2 months without invitation. Text messages where she'd threatened to fix my parenting. The financial records showing the money transfers. The property records showing she'd bought a house specifically to be near my daughter. "Mrs. Crawford," the judge said to my mother-in-law, "did you take these photographs?" "I was concerned about my granddaughter's welfare," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Her mother is clearly unstable. You can see in the pictures the house is a mess, the baby is always crying, she's completely overwhelmed and refusing help. Did you enter the plaintiff's property without permission on multiple occasions? My son gave me a key. I have every right to check on my granddaughter. To a house he doesn't own. To a house where he doesn't pay the mortgage." The judge looked at my husband. "Mr. Crawford, did you represent to your wife that you were contributing to household expenses while actually giving significant money to your mother?" My husband's lawyer whispered something to him urgently. He said nothing, just stared at the table. "Did you sign a petition claiming your wife is mentally unstable and unfit to parent?" My mother thought. "I didn't ask what your mother thought. Did you sign it?" "Yes." "Based on what evidence?" Silence. My husband's face was red now, his jaw clenched. "Mr. Crawford, I'm asking you a direct question. What evidence did you personally witness that made you believe your wife was mentally unstable? She changed the locks without asking me. On a house you don't own or pay for? She kept my mother away from the baby. From your child, you mean? Your wife set a boundary with your mother regarding your shared child, and you interpreted that as mental instability?" More silence. The judge turned back to my mother-in-law. "Mrs. Crawford, you purchased a property 2 streets from the plaintiff's home. Can you explain that decision?" "I wanted to be close to my granddaughter." "Is that a crime?" "You purchased a 4-bedroom home with a nursery already furnished for a grandchild who lives 2 streets away with her mother. That seems excessive for occasional visits." "I was planning for when I get custody," she said, then caught herself. "I mean, for sleepovers and visits." "You were planning to get custody of a child whose mother has shown no signs of unfitness except in your documented harassment campaign?" Her lawyer tried to interrupt, but the judge held up a hand. "I've reviewed the evidence submitted, photos taken through windows, unsolicited visits documented at all hours, entry into the plaintiff's home without permission, harassment through family members and social media, and now an admission that you intended to gain custody of this child." He looked at the petition she'd filed. This claims the mother is neglectful. Your evidence is dirty dishes and laundry, things every new parent deals with. You claim she's mentally unstable. Your evidence is that she set boundaries with you. You claim the child is in danger. Your evidence is that the child cries, which is what babies do. My mother-in-law's face was getting red now too. You don't understand. She's keeping my granddaughter from me. I have rights. You have the rights granted to you by law, which do not include stalking, harassment, or trespassing. They certainly don't include planning to take custody of a child from a fit parent. The judge granted the restraining order. My mother-in-law was to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my daughter, and my property. She was forbidden from contacting me directly or through third parties. She couldn't post about me on social media, couldn't send letters or gifts. Nothing. She stood up, shaking. You can't keep me from my granddaughter. I'll appeal this. I'll take it all the way to the Supreme Court if I have to. You should have thought about that before you stalked her mother, the judge said. And Mrs. Crawford, if you violate this order even once, you'll be arrested. Do you understand? This is insane. My son, are you going to let her do this? My husband just sat there staring at his hands. As we left the courthouse, I heard her screaming at him in the parking lot. Fix this! You fix this right now! I didn't buy that house for nothing. How could you let this happen? I'm your mother. Patricia walked me to my car. That went better than I expected. She basically admitted in court that she planned to take custody. That's going to destroy any future grandparents' rights claims. What happens now? Now we move forward with the divorce. And honestly, after that hearing, I'd be surprised if he doesn't settle quickly. His lawyer knows they don't have a case. But my husband didn't settle quickly. He fought. Not because he wanted me back or wanted custody of our daughter. He fought because his mother told him to. The divorce proceedings became a nightmare. His mother funded everything, hiring expensive lawyers who filed motion after motion. They claimed I'd stolen marital property because the house was in my name. They claimed I'd hidden assets. They demanded full financial disclosure going back to before we were married. Patricia responded with our own financial disclosure. Every mortgage payment I'd made alone, every utility bill, every grocery receipt, every expense for the house that my husband had never contributed to. She showed the transfers to his mother, the separate bank account, everything. They tried to claim I'd forced him to give me money, that he'd been the victim of financial abuse. Patricia produced his email bragging to his friends about how his wife paid for everything so he could save money. Screenshots he'd deleted, but the investigator had recovered. They claimed I was alienating our daughter from him. Patricia showed the judge my calendar, every supervised visit offered, every attempt I'd made to maintain his relationship with his child. Then she showed his attendance record, 6 visits in 4 months, each one cut short because he got bored or had somewhere else to be. The custody evaluation came back heavily in my favor. The evaluator noted that our daughter didn't recognize her father, showed no distress when separated from him, and had a strong, secure attachment to me. She noted the home I provided was stable, clean, and appropriate. She noted my support system of family and friends. She also noted the concerning pattern of my husband's mother trying to insert herself into the case, attempting to contact the evaluator directly, sending unsolicited letters about my parenting. The evaluator's report specifically mentioned the restraining order and recommended no contact between the grandmother and child until the grandmother completed a psychological evaluation and family therapy. My husband's lawyer tried to suppress that recommendation. The judge denied it. 6 months after I filed for divorce, we finally got to the settlement conference. My husband showed up with his mother, despite his lawyer's advice. She wasn't allowed in the mediation room because of the restraining order, so she sat in the hallway, texting him constantly. Every time we got close to an agreement, he'd step out to talk to her and come back with new demands. He wanted the house. He wanted full custody. He wanted me to pay him alimony even though he made more money than me. After the third interruption, the mediator lost patience. Mr. Crawford, is your mother directing your decisions in this mediation? She's just giving me advice. Your mother, who has a restraining order against her for stalking your wife, is advising you on your divorce settlement. Do you see how that might be a problem? His lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. We didn't settle that day, or the next mediation session, or the one after that. Every time, the same pattern. We'd make progress, he'd talk to his mother, everything would fall apart. Finally, Patricia filed a motion asking the judge to bar him from consulting with his mother during settlement negotiations. She argued that his mother's involvement was preventing resolution and prolonging the case unnecessarily. The judge agreed. He ordered my husband to attend the next mediation alone, with no contact with his mother during the session. If he violated this order, the judge would make decisions for him. That mediation lasted 11 hours. Without his mother whispering in his ear, my husband had to face reality. He didn't have a case for custody. He didn't have a claim to the house. He'd committed fraud and financial abuse, and I had evidence of all of it. He settled. I got the house, full custody, and child support based on his actual income, which it turned out was substantially higher than he'd been claiming. He'd been having his employer divide his paycheck, sending part to a separate account his mother controlled. More fraud, more evidence. The property settlement was even better. Since he'd committed fraud by claiming ownership of my house, he got nothing from it. No equity, no buyout, nothing. The car I'd been driving, which he'd titled in his name but I'd been making payments on, mine. The furniture, the savings account I'd been building, all of it. He got supervised visitation with our daughter, 1 afternoon per week, at a neutral location, with a court-appointed supervisor present. He didn't get to take her to his mother's house, didn't get to have his mother anywhere near her. The order specifically stated that if his mother appeared at any visitation, it would be terminated immediately, and he'd lose visitation rights for 6 months. My lawyer's fees were awarded to him, plus he had to reimburse me for the cost of the security system I'd installed. The judge called it necessary protection from documented harassment. When we left that final mediation, my husband looked destroyed. He sat in his car for a long time before driving away. I later heard from mutual friends that his mother was waiting for him at her house, furious that he'd given in to my demands. But the divorce wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of what my mother-in-law would try next. The restraining order was supposed to protect me, and technically it did. She couldn't come near me or my daughter, couldn't contact me directly, couldn't show up at my house. So she found other ways. She started attending the same gym I went to. She'd be there every time I arrived, working out where I could see her, staring at me. When I reported it, she claimed it was her gym too. She'd been a member for years. Records showed she'd joined the week after the restraining order was issued. I switched gyms. She joined that one too. I reported it to my lawyer. Patricia filed a motion to modify the restraining order, expanding it to include my gym, my grocery store, anywhere I regularly went. The judge granted it, warning my mother-in-law that this was her last chance. She moved on to social media. She couldn't post about me directly, but she started a blog about grandparents' rights and parental alienation. She never used my name, but anyone who knew us could tell it was about me. Posts about selfish mothers who weaponize children against loving grandparents. Posts with photos of the house she'd bought, the empty nursery, captioned with things like, "Waiting for the day justice prevails." I screenshot everything and sent it to Patricia. We filed another motion. The judge read the blog and wasn't amused. "Mrs. Crawford, your restraining order prohibits you from harassing the plaintiff through any means, including social media. This blog clearly violates that order." I never mentioned her name. "You don't need to. The context makes it clear. You will delete this blog immediately and you will not create any similar content. Do you understand?" She deleted it, but the damage was done. Her friends had shared the posts everywhere. I got messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, asking if I was really keeping a grandmother from her grandchild. People who believed her version, where she was the victim. I didn't respond to any of them. Patricia advised me to stay silent, to let my legal victories speak for themselves. But it hurt, seeing people I'd thought were friends believe her lies. Then she tried the medical route. She contacted our daughter's pediatrician, claiming to be calling on my behalf, trying to get medical records. The receptionist recognized her name from the alert I'd put in the file and refused. My mother-in-law argued, getting increasingly aggressive, until the receptionist called the doctor. The doctor came out and found her still in the waiting room, demanding to see records for her granddaughter. The doctor knew about the restraining order. She called the police. My mother-in-law was arrested for violating the restraining order and attempting identity theft. She spent a night in jail before her lawyer got her out. The court hearing was swift. The judge reviewed the evidence, the receptionist's statement, the security footage from the pediatrician's office, the arrest record. "Mrs. Crawford, I specifically warned you at your last hearing. This is now a criminal matter. I'm holding you in contempt of court and imposing a sentence of 30 days in jail, suspended, with 2 years probation. If you violate this restraining order again in any way, you'll serve that 30 days plus additional time for the new violation." She tried to argue, but her lawyer shut her down. She accepted the plea deal: probation, mandatory counseling, and a criminal record. I thought that would be the end. Surely a criminal conviction would make her stop. It didn't. She hired a private investigator to follow me. I noticed the same car behind me for several days before I reported it. The PI admitted he'd been hired by my mother-in-law to document my parenting, to get evidence that I was unfit. Patricia filed another motion. The judge was done being patient. "Mrs. Crawford, you hired someone to stalk the plaintiff in violation of your restraining order. This is your third violation. I'm revoking your suspended sentence. You'll serve 30 days in jail, effective immediately." She screamed at the judge, at her lawyer, at everyone. Bailiffs had to remove her from the courtroom. She served 25 days of the sentence before being released for good behavior. My husband visited her in jail every day, brought her books and magazines, told her she was right, that I was the problem, that this was all my fault. When she got out, she was quiet for a while. Too quiet. I knew she was planning something, but I didn't know what. The answer came 2 months later. She filed for grandparents' rights in a different county, claiming she'd established a relationship with our daughter before the restraining order. She presented photos from the first 6 weeks of my daughter's life, when I'd still been allowing visits. She claimed she'd been a primary caregiver, that my daughter needed her. Patricia had the case transferred to our county, where the judge already knew the history. He reviewed the petition and dismissed it immediately. "Mrs. Crawford, you have a criminal conviction for violating a restraining order related to this child. You've been arrested multiple times for harassment and stalking. You have no standing for grandparents' rights. This petition is denied, and you're barred from filing any similar petitions in the future. If you attempt this again, I'll find you in contempt." She appealed. The appeal was denied. She tried to take it to a higher court. That petition was denied too. Finally, her lawyer quit. He told the court he couldn't ethically continue representing her because she refused to listen to legal advice and kept instructing him to file frivolous motions. Without a lawyer, she tried to represent herself. She filed handwritten motions full of spelling errors and legal arguments that made no sense. She showed up to court hearings rambling about her rights as a grandmother, about how the courts were corrupt, about how I'd poisoned everyone against her. Judges stopped taking her seriously. They'd see her name on a filing and groan. One judge actually said, "Mrs. Crawford, at some point you need to accept reality. You're not getting custody of this child. You're not getting unsupervised visitation. You will likely never have any relationship with this child because of your own actions. It's time to move on." She didn't move on. My daughter turned 2. I threw a small party at my house with my family and close friends. Simple. Cake, balloons, presents. She was too young to remember it, but I wanted to celebrate her being healthy and happy and safe. The next day, my mother-in-law posted on Facebook, A long, rambling post about how she hadn't been invited to her own granddaughter's birthday party, how I was cruel and heartless, how grandparents were being erased from children's lives by vindictive mothers, how the courts enabled this abuse. She tagged me, tagged my husband, tagged dozens of people we knew. The post got hundreds of comments before I could report it. But this time, something was different. People had seen enough. They'd watched her behavior for 2 years. They'd seen the arrests, the restraining order violations, the obsessive posting. The comments weren't sympathetic. They were calling her out. Maybe there's a reason you weren't invited. After everything you've done, you're lucky you're not in jail. Leave this poor woman alone. It's creepy. My husband's cousin commented, Aunt Helen, I love you, but you need to stop. You're making this worse. The court gave you clear boundaries and you keep violating them. This isn't about your rights anymore. It's about respecting the law. My mother-in-law deleted the post within an hour, but the screenshots had already circulated. People were talking, and they weren't on her side anymore. My ex-husband called me that night, the first time we'd spoken directly in months. My mom's having a breakdown, he said. She won't eat, won't sleep, just sits in that nursery crying. The doctor wants to put her on medication, but she refuses. I'm sorry she's struggling, I said carefully, but that's not my responsibility. She just wants to see her granddaughter. Is that really so terrible? She had a chance to have a relationship with our daughter. She chose to try to take her instead. She chose to stalk me, to violate court orders, to get arrested. Those were her choices. You could drop the restraining order. Let her see the baby supervised. It would mean everything to her. No, that's it? Just no? Your mother has shown me repeatedly who she is. She doesn't want a relationship with our daughter. She wants ownership. She wants control. And I will never give her access to my child. He hung up on me, but his mother must have heard something in that conversation, because the next attempt was different. Softer. She sent a letter through her therapist. A long apology, talking about how she'd realized she was wrong, how therapy had helped her see her mistakes, how she just wanted a chance to be a grandmother the right way. I read it with Patricia. We both noted the careful wording, the passive voice. Mistakes were made, instead of, I made mistakes. Boundaries were crossed, instead of, I crossed boundaries. She's still not taking responsibility, Patricia said. This is just another manipulation. I wrote back, through Patricia. I said that if she wanted any possibility of a relationship with our daughter, she needed to complete a full psychological evaluation, attend family therapy for at least a year, and demonstrate real change. That even then, any contact would be supervised and could be terminated at any time if she showed signs of her old behavior. She refused, said I was asking too much, that I was being unreasonable, that she'd already apologized, and that should be enough. So nothing changed. My daughter is almost 4 now. She doesn't remember her grandmother. Doesn't remember the first weeks of her life when this woman was there constantly. Doesn't know about the house 2 streets away. Finally sold at a loss after sitting empty for years. She knows her father, barely. He still has his weekly supervised visits, though he misses about half of them. When he does show up, he doesn't know how to talk to her. Doesn't know her favorite foods, her fears, her jokes. The supervisor's reports note that he spends most of the time on his phone while our daughter plays alone. Last month, he asked to modify the custody arrangement. He wanted the supervision removed so he could take her to visit his mother. Patricia filed our response. Absolutely not. We included every restraining order violation, every arrest, every piece of evidence showing his mother was still obsessed with gaining access to our daughter. The judge didn't even hold a hearing. He denied the request in writing, noting that until his mother completed the psychological evaluation and family therapy I'd requested, there would be no modifications to the custody order. My ex-husband didn't appeal. I heard through mutual friends that he and his mother barely speak now, that he blames her for destroying his marriage, for costing him his relationship with his daughter, that she blames me for turning him against her. Neither of them takes responsibility for what they did. But I don't need them to. I have my daughter, healthy and happy and safe. I have my house, paid off early with the child support he's been sending. I have my career, my friends, my family. I have peace. Sometimes I think about the alternate timeline, the one where I didn't change the locks, where I accepted his mother's intrusions, where I tried to keep the peace. In that timeline, my daughter would be growing up thinking it's normal for people to violate boundaries. Normal for grandmothers to control mothers. Normal for husbands to choose their mothers over their wives. In that timeline, I'd be miserable, trapped, slowly eroded by constant criticism and control. In this timeline, I'm free. And my daughter is learning something different. She's learning that it's okay to say no, that you don't have to accept treatment that makes you feel small, or scared, or controlled, that standing up for yourself isn't mean, it's necessary. She's 4 years old and she already knows how to set boundaries. When she doesn't want a hug, she says no thank you. When she needs space, she asks for it. When something bothers her, she speaks up. I'm teaching her that her voice matters, that her comfort matters, that she's allowed to take up space in the world without apologizing. My mother-in-law wanted to raise her to be compliant and obedient, to respect elders without question, to put family peace above her own well-being. I'm raising her to be strong, to trust her instincts, to know that family is important, but not more important than her safety and happiness. Last week, my daughter asked me about her father's mother. Someone at preschool had been talking about their grandmother, and she wanted to know about hers. I took a breath and told her the truth, age appropriately. You do have a grandmother on daddy's side, but she made some choices that weren't safe, so she's not allowed to visit us right now. What did she do? She didn't respect boundaries. When someone told her no, she didn't listen, and that's not okay. My daughter nodded, processing this. Like when Tommy wouldn't stop pulling my hair even though I said stop? Exactly like that. And he got a timeout. Yes. And grown-ups get timeouts too, except we call them consequences. She seemed satisfied with that answer. Went back to playing with her toys. Simple, honest, age-appropriate. No lies about grandma being sick, or living far away, or any of the other excuses I could have made. Just the truth. She broke rules, and there are consequences. My daughter will grow up knowing this story. When she's older, I'll tell her more details. I'll show her the court documents, the restraining orders, the evidence I gathered. I'll explain how I protected both of us, and she'll understand that love isn't about accepting abuse. That family doesn't mean surrendering your rights. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no and mean it. My mother-in-law is in her late 60s now. Her health is declining. My ex-husband has mentioned, through our lawyers, that she's been diagnosed with heart problems, that she might not have many years left. He's hinted that maybe I should let her meet our daughter before it's too late, that I'd regret it if she died without knowing her granddaughter. I won't regret it. She had chances. Dozens of them. She chose to try to take my child instead of respecting my role as mother. She chose to stalk me instead of building a healthy relationship. She chose to violate court orders instead of accepting boundaries. Those were her choices. And choices have consequences. If she dies without meeting my daughter, that will be sad. But it will be the natural result of her own actions. Not my fault. Not my responsibility to fix. I won't sacrifice my daughter's safety and my own peace for someone who has repeatedly proven they can't be trusted. People think I'm heartless sometimes. They see a grandmother, elderly and unwell, kept from her granddaughter. They don't see the stalking, the harassment, the arrests. They don't see the house she bought to steal my child, the custody petitions, the identity theft. They don't see the full picture. And I don't owe them an explanation. I know what happened. My daughter will know what happened. That's enough. The house is quiet tonight. My daughter is asleep upstairs, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. The security cameras show empty streets. No strange cars. No unwanted visitors. Peace. I've built a good life for us. A safe life. And I did it by refusing to compromise on the things that matter. My mother-in-law wanted me to be weak. Wanted me to accept her intrusions because standing up to her would be uncomfortable. Instead, I showed my daughter that uncomfortable conversations are worth having. That documents and evidence matter. That the legal system exists to protect people who need protection. I showed her that mothers can be strong, that we don't have to accept mistreatment in the name of family harmony. And every day that I wake up in my own house with my daughter safe beside me, I know I made the right choice. Every single time.